Today we're going to unravel the mystery behind a horrifying murder case that shook public opinion in the frigid land of Alaska. This case has been described by modern-day judges as the most barbaric, brutal, and unprecedented murder in Alaska's history. The perpetrator behind it all has been dubbed the most wicked criminal. The victim was a young girl with the mind of a 12-year-old, savagely killed. Even more terrifying, the mastermind was a stranger, thousands of miles away from the crime scene. So, what really happened? Join me as we turn back time to 2019, to the city of Anchorage, Alaska, to uncover the truth hidden behind this tragedy. Anchorage, the largest and most populous city in Alaska, sits in a uniquely remarkable geographic location near the Arctic Circle. The climate here is infamous for its bone-chilling cold, with long, harsh winters. Anchorage serves as both a commercial and transportation hub and a gateway to Alaska's wilderness. Surrounding the city are snow-capped mountain ranges, majestic glaciers and vast forests, creating a breathtaking natural landscape. This place attracts countless tourists each year, especially those who love snow sports like skiing. And the story we're about to explore took place in this beautiful yet enigmatic city. On June 8, 2019, Cynthia Hoffman, the owner of a repair shop in Anchorage, went through a day filled with overwhelming anxiety and unease. His daughter, Cynthia Hoffman, 19 years old, had gone missing after leaving the house that morning. She wasn't answering her phone or replying to messages. Earlier that day, Cynthia had made plans with her younger sister to meet at the fast food restaurant where they both worked part-time to put on their uniforms. Afterward, they were supposed to go shopping together. Before Cynthia left the house, Timothy had cautioned her to be careful and stay in touch regularly. That morning, Cynthia texted her dad, saying she was on her way. But by the afternoon, the young girl suddenly vanished without a trace. A chilling silence enveloped the Hoffman family, signaling an impending tragedy. If Cynthia were an ordinary 19-year-old who went missing for half a day or even a full day, her family might not have been overly concerned. But Cynthia's case was unique. She was born on October 8, 1999, and from a young age she was obedient and sweet, the apple of her parents' eye. However, a few years later, her parents noticed something different about her compared to other kids her age. Cynthia struggled with learning, was often ostracized by peers, and had almost no friends. When they took her to get checked, they received heartbreaking news. Cynthia had a congenital intellectual disability. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt, leaving the family devastated. Yet, Cynthia was a resilient girl who didn't let her parents down. She was full of life and optimism. Despite her academic struggles, she always tried her hardest and graduated high school in 2018. What reassured Cynthia's parents the most was that she had found a best friend at school, Angela, an 18-year-old girl. Angela was bold and strong-willed. Considered a leader at school, Cynthia admired her deeply. The two were inseparable, like two peas in a pod. Angela treated Cynthia kindly, taking her out, involving her in school activities and frequently visiting her at home. Cynthia often bragged to her dad that Angela was her very best friend. Since Angela came into her life, Cynthia was no longer as lonely as before. After graduating high school, Cynthia didn't pursue higher education, but instead took a part-time job at a fast food restaurant. In her free time, she hung out with Angela or helped her dad with his work. Cynthia wasn't just capable of measuring house dimensions, she even assisted with tasks like pouring concrete. She had also recently earned her driver's license. Cynthia's younger sister recalled that after getting paid, Cynthia suddenly decided to go out on her own and didn't come home with her. Though 19 years old, Cynthia had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. Yet, in everyday life, no one could tell she had a disability. Timothy was incredibly proud and happy about his daughter's growth, but he also constantly worried about her safety. He always reminded her to be cautious. Cynthia was very obedient to her father. Over the years, nothing like this had ever happened, suddenly losing contact without warning. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy Timothy felt. He immediately called the police. But what he couldn't have anticipated was the local police's response. They told him that since his daughter was 19 and legally an adult, she had to be missing for over 24 hours before a case could be opened. The news struck him like lightning, leaving Timothy utterly stunned. At this point, many of you might wonder, isn't the 24-hour waiting rule for missing adult cases outdated and long abolished? Perhaps at that time a few police departments still clung to this regulation. However, considering Cynthia had the mind of a 12-year-old and wasn't a fully capable adult, her case should have been treated as an exception. Timothy emphasized this to the police, but they still refused to open a case immediately. Various theories about the incident circulated online. Some media outlets suggested that Timothy might not have clearly explained his daughter's special condition. Others argued that the police were negligent and apathetic. Whatever the reason, this situation sparked questions about the competence of the local police force. But that's a story for later. Faced with the police's indifference, Timothy couldn't sit idly by. He knew better than anyone that his daughter was in danger, so he decided to search for her himself. With no other options, Timothy organized a search party on his own. He rallied relatives, friends, neighbors, and co-workers to scour the streets and alleys near their home on motorcycles. He even contacted news outlets to publish missing person notices about his daughter. A large group combed the area all day, but they found no trace of her. Just as Timothy was on the brink of despair, Angela, Cynthia's best friend, provided a crucial piece of information. She said that around 4 p.m., Cynthia wanted to go to the Northway Center Park to see polar bears. Angela had dropped her off there and left because she had other plans. She assumed Cynthia would head home after, never expecting something to go wrong. Angela was visibly worried and guilt-ridden, regretting leaving her friend alone. Upon hearing this, Timothy rushed to Northway Center Park. He asked everyone he met if they'd seen a 19-year-old girl wearing blue jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. But after questioning everyone, no one had seen Cynthia. Exhausted and consumed with worry, Timothy had no choice but to return home and wait for news from the police. Time crawled by, minute by agonizing minute, through a 24-hour eternity. Finally, the police officially launched an investigation. They started by approaching Angela, the last person to see Cynthia. After questioning her, they uncovered a shocking truth. The girl had been using a fake name. Her real name wasn't Angela. It was Denona Bremer. Why had Bremer used a false name to befriend Cynthia? This immediately piqued the police's interest, and they began investigating her. Though only 18, Bremer had a deeply troubled past. Her true self was a far cry from the kind, heroic friend Cynthia had known. Bremer was the third of 5 siblings. After her parents divorced, her mother started dating a new man, a violent abuser who regularly beat the children and even killed Bremer's 2-month-old sister right in front of her. It's hard to imagine the terror Bremer, still a child at the time, endured. After years of physical and emotional torment, 7-year-old Bremer finally escaped that hellish family and was taken in by a foster family. Yet the scars of her childhood clung to her like a deep, unhealable wound in her psyche. Bremer began hanging out with delinquent teens, spiraling into addiction. At 17, she carried a gun and worked as a prostitute. At 18, she was assaulted and gave birth to a baby girl. Just weeks after childbirth, she returned to her old ways. She was, in every sense, a deeply troubled young woman. By this point in the investigation, the police grew increasingly alarmed. Cynthia, an innocent girl with an immature mind, being close to someone like Bremer was undeniably dangerous. It was highly likely her disappearance was tied to Bremer, but before they could dig deeper, a bombshell dropped the very next evening. Bremer's foster mother, Nico, proactively contacted the Anchorage police. She revealed that on the night of June 8th, while Bremer and a young man named Caden were talking at home, Bremer confessed that she had shot Cynthia and dumped her body in the water. This revelation stunned the police. They had initially thought the case would take months to crack, yet the culprit emerged almost instantly. They immediately brought both Bremer and Caden in for questioning. Based on past experience, the police expected the suspects to deny everything. But to their surprise, Bremer didn't hesitate. She confessed right away. On June 8th, Caden, Cynthia, and I hung out together. We went for a long walk to explore the northern valley of Anchorage and used some illegal drugs. We were driving a black car and parked near Thunderbird Falls. Thunderbird Falls is a 61-meter-high waterfall surrounded by sprawling birch forests, a stunning spot perfect for exploration, loved by tourists and locals alike. Caden suddenly suggested playing a dangerous game, tying each other up with duct tape and taking photos to post online. Cynthia agreed, so we went into the woods and stopped by a small creek. Caden and I used duct tape to bind Cynthia's hands and feet and cover her mouth. But soon after, she started struggling violently, growing more and more agitated. We ripped the tape off her hands and mouth. At first, Cynthia said, "I'm going to tell the police you kidnapped me." That made Caden furious. He didn't want the police to know we'd been using drugs. He thought we were just playing a game, but Cynthia insisted on reporting us. The more Caden thought about it, the angrier he got. Finally, unable to control himself, he said he'd kill her. I happened to have a handgun with me. Caden grabbed it and shot Cynthia in the back of the head, then threw her body into the water. It all happened so fast I couldn't stop him. Afterward, I was terrified. Caden kept threatening me not to tell anyone, so I stayed silent. In her statement, Bremer portrayed herself as a pitiful victim, coerced and intimidated by Caden into going along with it. But was her confession credible? Could a girl with such a dark past like Bremer truly be just a victim of circumstance? In cases with multiple accomplices, suspects often point fingers at each other. Bremer's one-sided account was clearly not convincing enough. The police decided to hear Caden's side. Unexpectedly, Caden didn't deny anything either. He calmly admitted it all. He claimed he lost control and shot Cynthia after she tried to record everything. As they drove away from the scene, Caden was the one who told Bremer to fabricate the story about taking Cynthia to Northway Center. Later, the two even went to Northway Center to burn Cynthia's wallet, ID, and clothes. Caden stressed that he had forced Bremer into everything, insisting she was completely innocent. Based on the suspect's statements, on June 4th, the police found Cynthia's body in a small creek near Thunderbird Falls Park. She had been shot in the back of the head, her legs bound with duct tape, perfectly matching Bremer and Caden's accounts. This was enough to prove both were involved in the murder. The police later recovered the murder weapon, a 9mm handgun Bremer had illegally purchased earlier. At this point, the case had witnesses, evidence, and confessions. It should have been closed and sent to trial, yet some sharp-eyed officers remained skeptical of the pair's statements. First, if they were just friends hanging out, why was Bremer carrying a gun? Second, Bremer claimed she was terrified of Caden. Normally, after a crime like this, she'd have fled immediately, not stuck around to help the killer dispose of evidence. Moreover, during questioning, Caden made it clear he didn't want Bremer to go to jail, saying, "Bremer is my angel. I'd take the fall for her and do anything to protect her." These words raised the police's suspicions that the truth might not be so straightforward. Who was the real mastermind? Further investigation was needed. In the next phase, the police focused on analyzing the suspect's phones. They uncovered critical information on Bremer's iPhone. It turned out that Bremer and Caden weren't the only ones involved. 3 others were implicated, including a young man named Caleb and 2 minors. The black car used in the crime was borrowed from Caleb. The two minors had varying degrees of involvement, lured by Bremer's promise of payment. This meant Cynthia's death wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. It was a meticulously planned murder orchestrated by Bremer. But what baffled the police was that Bremer and Cynthia were supposedly close friends, with no apparent grudges or conflicts. Why would Bremer kill her? The answer finally emerged when the police recovered the chat. History from Bremer's phone. As mentioned earlier, Bremer had worked as a prostitute, using social media to find clients and conduct transactions in person. Among her contacts was a suspicious man nicknamed Honey. Bremer claimed he called himself Tyler, a millionaire, from Kansas. After digging deeper, the police discovered Tyler was a fake identity. He wasn't a millionaire. His real name was Darren Schillmiller, a 21-year-old living in New Salisbury, Indiana, over 5,000 kilometers from Anchorage. After graduating from North Harrison High School, Darren lived with his grandparents. Most of his old classmates remembered him fondly, describing him as shy and polite. Though not a stellar student, he was friendly and helpful, but one female classmate had a different view, calling him a pervert who had repeatedly asked her for bikini photos and harassed her online. Investigating Darren's social media, the police found he often used fake identities to make perverse demands of internet users, mostly involving infants, like requesting explicit photos or dirty diapers. Several local mothers reported him asking for their babies' diapers. Even more suspiciously, Darren was linked to a 2018 child-related case. Back then, he'd used his phone to contact a woman in California, demanding nude photos of children. He was released due to insufficient evidence. So what tied a deviant like Darren to Bremer? Technicians recovered their chat history, revealing a series of unthinkable exchanges. Initially, Darren paid Bremer for explicit child photos. Over time, his demands grew increasingly twisted. 3 weeks before the murder, he proposed a horrific deal. He'd pay Bremer $9 million if she assaulted and killed a young girl, then sent him a video of it. Without hesitation, Bremer agreed. To her, Darren's request was as simple as sipping water. She didn't even know who he really was or worry about being scammed. She even expressed affection for this vile accomplice. Bremer quickly recruited 4 others to help execute her scheme. When Caden shot Cynthia, Bremer was busy filming and photographing the scene to send to Darren. Imagine watching your best friend die right in front of you, yet Bremer showed no remorse. Instead, she calmly recorded it for profit. How cold-blooded. As for Darren, after receiving the video, he not only refused to pay, but criticized the killing process and demanded Bremer plan another murder. Had the police not intervened, there might have been more victims. They also found a trove of child pornography in their chats, filmed by Bremer and traded to Darren for cash. From these messages and Bremer's actions, it's clear she didn't care about being deceived or whether Darren was truly rich. She willingly committed the crime. Darren derived pleasure from gory videos, while Bremer found some sick satisfaction in the act itself. These two monsters reached a twisted mutual understanding. Why was Cynthia chosen? The answer is chillingly simple. Bremer never saw her as a friend, only a tool to exploit. Her intellectual disability and blind admiration made her an easy target. After her arrest, in an interview, Bremer gave an absurd reason for killing Cynthia. "One day we argued over a guy. It made me so mad I decided to kill her." Such a trivial excuse ended a life. To someone like Bremer, who treated lives as disposable, any petty grievance could justify murder. Darren's actions were even more depraved. To satisfy his urges, he incited someone thousands of miles away to harm an innocent girl. His callousness and cruelty were inhuman. The police collaborated with Indiana state authorities to apprehend Darren before he could flee. The court set his bail at $1 million. On June 14, 2019, based on over 56 hours of video and hundreds of thousands of pages of written evidence provided by the police, an Anchorage grand jury formally indicted Darren, Bremer, Caden, Caleb, and 2 minors. Charges included first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, evidence tampering, and 2 counts of second-degree murder. The masterminds, Darren and Bremer, also face charges of soliciting first-degree murder. Facing the accusations, both pleaded not guilty and fiercely defended themselves. Bremer claimed she was a victim manipulated by others, saying, "Does saying that make me less of a murderer? No, it doesn't. It's just something on my conscience. I didn't actually kill anyone myself. I haven't physically taken a human life. I was just the catalyst for taking one. That's my burden because of my conscience." Darren also called himself a victim, controlled by warped desires he couldn't resist. With these defenses from 2 such criminals, would justice prevail? The chief prosecutor argued Bremer acted with cold blood, meticulously planning and executing it perfectly, a textbook case of first-degree murder and hiring someone to kill, the most severe kind. She showed no remorse after the act, and even continued committing crimes unforgivable. Though Darren didn't directly participate, his actions also fall under first-degree murder and hiring to kill, the gravest category. He planned and caused this tragedy just for thrills. The judge emphasized that the video Bremer recorded of Cynthia bound with duct tape was one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence he'd ever seen in his career. Due to the case's multiple participants and the pandemic's impact, the final trial was delayed repeatedly. During the long wait, beyond the pain of losing his daughter, Cynthia's father tirelessly fought for justice. In an interview, he shared, "I just want justice for my little girl, for everyone." He expressed profound anguish. After years of waiting and trials, in 2024, the court delivered its verdict. Darren was sentenced to 99 years in prison on January 11, 2024. Bremer received 99 years on January 12, 2024. Additionally, both admitted to conspiring to produce and distribute child pornography, facing up to 30 more years. Caleb, convicted of second-degree murder, got 40 years in August 2024. Caden, 16 at the time of the crime, took a plea deal for second-degree murder, with a sentence ranging from 3 to 85 years, though specifics weren't disclosed. Details about the 2 remaining minors weren't released due to their age. Notably, this horrific case didn't end with the trial. It sparked a prolonged online debate. Since most involved were young, some viewed Bremer as a victim of circumstance, arguing her crimes stemmed from a tragic childhood and Darren's influence, deserving leniency. Others firmly believed she wasn't innocent. The apathy and ruthlessness she displayed were terrifying. She even planned another murder. She wasn't a victim, but a cold-blooded killer who reveled in crime. Though the perpetrators received fitting punishment, the Hoffman family's pain of losing Cynthia will never fade. Over the years, her father held annual memorials on her death anniversary, riding his motorcycle to honor her memory. On June 8, 2024, the 5th anniversary of Cynthia's death, another tragedy struck. Timothy, 58, died in a motorcycle accident during the memorial ride. It was the first time his wife Barbara joined him. She survived but was severely injured, requiring multiple surgeries to recover. Since then, Donald Jr., Cynthia's brother, has taken up the responsibility of remembering their lost loved ones. He vowed to continue the yearly motorcycle memorials. Cynthia's story is a costly lesson for us all. It reminds us of the importance of education, care, and compassion, of building a safe environment for society's vulnerable. It's also a warning about the internet's dark side and the need to equip ourselves and our loved ones with knowledge and skills to stay safe from hidden dangers. Stay vigilant, keep questioning, and never stop learning to recognize and steer clear of those with ill intent. Above all, spread love and empathy to make this world safer for everyone, especially those as vulnerable as Cynthia. That's all for today's video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.